Welcome to Dog Show Tips, brought to you by Canine Chronicle TV and Pro Plan, nutrition that performs. And this week on the interview chair, we have Randy Garren. So sit back and relax and listen to Randy. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. Today on the chair, we have Randy Garren, ex-professional handler and AKC judge. How's it going, Randy?
Pretty good, thank you.
It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
How's the weather down there? Getting hot?
It's been pretty hot. Yeah. Been walking around the property with a watering can and a hose in my hand, keeping things watered.
Yeah. See, it's hot up here as well. We had a big heat rush last week, I guess. But it's settled down now. It's back to somewhat normal. So,
well, I guess we lucked out at what was that? Those shows up there that I just did.
Shores.
Yeah, I like those shows a lot. Yeah, so I guess we got lucky with the weather.
Yeah, you did, because sometimes there it can be dreadfully hot, and right along the river when it gets really hot, but then the bugs start to come up, and But yeah, it was pretty good. I was there the one day and saw you, but it was nice that day. So anyway, let's get started. My first question is always, how did you get started in the sport of dogs?
I'm from Western North Carolina.
How old were you too? So,
and excuse me.
How old were you when you started?
Well, I was brought up in the mountains of North Carolina, Western North Carolina, and I just wanted a dog that I could nurture and take care of. And I was 12 years old, and I saved my lawnmower money to buy a poodle. And my aunt had some fencing she didn't need any longer, so she gave that to me, and I put it up. And then grooming, I really couldn't make enough money to have it groomed, and my mother. She was too thrifty to pay a barber to do my brother's and my hair, so I used her clippers to trim my dog, and discovered that it was I could make more money grooming dogs than mowing grass. So that it just went onward from there.
Well, what was next, though? You have this puppy, but how did you get into?
It was an older dog. Well, okay. A friend of mine that lived like a mile down the road was also he had toy poodles as well, and I'm sure you remember Sassafras Kennels in Dog World magazine. Yeah, well, he was 2 years older than me. This was probably when I was 13, and his mother said we could call Sassafras if we paid her for the call. So anyway, we called Pamela Ingram, and we combined our funds to buy. We couldn't afford a show dog. We bought stud quality, but it took us 2 or 3 years to realize it was actually pet quality. But and then I guess my third dog I bought from Jane Ablett, Scylla Jack Kennels, on my own, and that was really a beautiful bitch that should have finished easily. But I guess I looked pretty stupid, a tall, skinny kid with a white toy poodle on a string that probably was not groomed very well. So that was the beginning.
That was the beginning, but there's a lot more. So you have this toy poodle now. You showed this toy poodle. What was your first show then?
Well, my first show, I distinctly remember, it was 1968. I was 14 years old, and my parents were always very supportive, even though they said it was a phase. Well, over 60 years later, I'm still going through this phase. But anyway, they took me to the dog show in Asheville. It was down to Asheville, North Carolina. It was downtown in the old auditorium. And the toys were judged up on the stage. And Richard Bauer was there with Montmartre Marlene, a black toy poodle that he did a lot of winning with then. And who was that tall, rather buxom lady that she was very well known at the time? Marie Meyer. Marie Meyer was judging. And anyway, I was just thoroughly taken with everything. The handler set up downstairs. I went downstairs. I saw Jane Case crates stacked to the ceiling and Richards. And at that time, Mike Billings, she was Mike Leathers, was with Stan Flowers. They had a huge string of dogs. And I just felt like that was where I belonged.
So what did you do about it?
I tried showing my dogs, and actually, I guess I was probably about 15. There was a lady in Asheville, North Carolina. At the time, she was very famous in Cairn Terriers, and she started taking me to shows. And I would fill out her entry blanks while she was driving, and I began to learn her pedigrees better than she did. But she taught me so much. Still, the way I perceive dogs is still influenced by that lady. Truly, she had a huge influence on me. And she said, well, you're kind of tall. Why don't you get a standard poodle? So I got a standard poodle not long after that. And I won a couple of groups with him, finished him as a puppy. And I did pretty good with him. So it was a good idea.
So your grooming must have improved, but was it natural to you to figure this out, or did someone help you? Or
I watched. There were only shows in my area. I couldn't afford to go to Poodle Club of America or anything like that. There were only shows in my area in February and July. And Vernell, she was Vernell Hartman back then. She always came down. And I just stood back and watched her. I was afraid to say anything to her. And most people don't remember Ann Goodwin. She was a prominent poodle handler she lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, but she was not as talented as Vernell. Vernell was way ahead of her time. If you'll remember, like redhead with the tight English saddle, the tight patch she had on her. I don't mean to diss Annie. Annie always said it was her that took the hair off underneath them and made it a tighter trim. But Vernell had a lot to do with that too. She was extremely talented.
Really? Wow, that's interesting.
So I learned most of what just from doing it myself and looking at pictures and watching Vernell when she came down twice a year.
When did you decide that this is something you wanted to do for your living?
Oh, well, to make my parents happy, I was a business major in college, but I've never been to a reunion or anything. I was a day student because all I wanted to do was go to dog shows. And when I finished, I realized I didn't want to do that. So I opened a grooming shop and showed my own dogs.
Did you ever work for a handler?
Not really. I went a couple of weekends. Do you remember Monroe McIntyre, Nancy Hafter's partner, Doctari of Apogee Doctari?
Yeah, Doctari, I remember that.
Yeah, I went with Monroe a couple of times, but if you want to call going to dog shows with Nancy Thompson, the Cairn lady, that's about as close as I came working for anybody.
Yeah. So how did you become this prominent professional?
I never considered myself prominent. Well, I had the grooming shop for 7 or 8 years showing my own dogs. And, actually, I didn't. I showed my dogs for a while, moved away from home, and I stopped showing for a while and had the grooming shop. And I decided I went to the Asheville show, and I decided I really wanted to go to dog shows again. So I brought a black puppy back from Nancy and Monroe. And I started showing it, and then I got a standard. Yeah, I'm having to remember. I got a standard poodle, and she wasn't very good. She was sired by Kathy Kish's Valhalla's in Command, who Dennis co-bred with Kathy. And but she wasn't very good at all. And I didn't have time, or I just couldn't find the majors on her. So I hired this handler that I met like 8 years ago and really liked when he came down to live with Ricky Coster. And his name was Dennis McCoy. And I'd always felt for Dennis. I truly did. When I go to dog shows with Nancy, I would hang out at Ricky's setup, but Dennis would never acknowledge me at all, no matter how hard I tried. But anyway, he finished it, and I guess I did an Ann Stevenson thing. I married my handler. So that's
that's great.
That's how it happened.
So you hired Dennis. So that's a great story.
It's the truth.
That's fabulous. So where did it go from there? You guys became this formidable team that was just...
Well, we didn't have a cent to rub together. Dennis had just bought this property a couple months before, and I did sell some investments I had and moved in with him, but we bought the back 8 acres, but we didn't have any money after that. I mean, we had this little motor home he had borrowed, and we grew him on the front porch. And I do have a funny story. We were trying to save up money to build a kennel, and we had this white toy poodle, our first big winter, Nosy, and we didn't even know what Quaker Oats was. And they called us in the end of the year and said we'd won Quaker Oats. And I remember Dennis saying, well, what is that? But anyway, we go to New York in February. I guess this was probably about 1984. We've been together 2 years, but like I say, we're trying to save money to build a kennel. And Bobby and Craig were there. You know, you unloaded and then you took the elevator up. And Bobby and Craig, and they had won it with the black standard. What was his name? Come on, Will, help me out.
I can see him. I can't think of his name.
It wasn't Jet Setter. It was before Jet Setter. Anyway, it'll come to me. I have this happen in my old age.
I'm trying to pull up the ads in my head.
I have a bronze of him that Rick Pashutia did in the living room, but I can't. It'll come to me. But they were unloading downstairs, and then one non-sporting. We said, "What are you wearing to the dinner tonight?" And they said, "Oh, we're wearing tuxedos." Well, at the time, they were a little overdressed. It wasn't really that fancy back then, but Dennis and I looked at each other and we said, God, we can't afford tuxedos. But Dennis had a black suit. I had some black pants and a black, dark green kind of jacket. So we went over to Macy's and we bought cummerbunds and formal shirts. And actually, we looked pretty good. But this is a terrible story. We got up the next morning and I looked at all this stuff and I said, Dennis, we'll never win anything like this again. So anyhow, we took it all back to Macy's and got our money back. And then after we won it a couple of times, we decided, well, maybe we should invest in tuxedos.
Maybe you better buy some tuxedos. I didn't formally meet Dennis. I think in 1986. I think he came up to Canada. Was that Jacqueline? Was that Jacqueline?
Yeah, we did. We came up there. You guys were so nice. I remember Garrett Lambert was so nice. Took us out to dinner. Yeah, and I remember Carol was still handling. She had her motor home. She was showing a white standard for Dick and John.
Yep.
What was her name? I can't remember names anymore.
Oh, what was her name?
Post No Bills. Post No Bills.
Billy. Yes.
Billy. She was showing Billy, but that was about Nosy was retired, so that was about 1986.
Yeah, because I remember you guys then. So yeah, that's when I first met you guys. Was up? I'm sure it was 86 because I was working for Gary McDonald, but I hung out with Garrett a lot, so I got to see you guys. So
and it was
I was
also
just a kid. So when
Mike Lamb was up there and he worked for Joan Pelly.
Yeah.
And Luke was showing what was that first shoot?
Randy
Alexander. And he was helping Mike at the poodle specialty. And curiously enough, Carlos Fernandez Renau, Gordon's breeder, was the judge at the Canadian Poodle National. So it was a really nice trip. You know, a lot of those people aren't around now, and
I just remember seeing the bitch, and then we hadn't seen anything like I'd seen Billy and I'd seen Doug Susan had showed, but I'd never seen Jacqueline. So it was fun. It was exciting. And Garrett always had something, you know.
Yeah. I still miss Garrett. He was a pretty special guy.
He sure was. I have a picture of him on my mother painted up for me. And
wow.
Yeah.
Bonnie Threlfall has a picture of him at her house too. She was really close to Garrett. She's one of my local buddies.
Perfect. So what was next? You guys came to Canada. That's when I met you. I don't know. Is that where we were? But what was next? You'd already won the Quaker Oats, and what was Jack?
We got the kennel built, and back then toy poodles. This is a funny story, too, how we got our first Japanese person, because we always had for years at least 2, sometimes as many as 4 Japanese people living in the kennel. We couldn't do now what we did then. There's no way that we could get help because we had the Japanese. We kept a lot of dogs. And we had clients that would send us a dog cut down that we'd keep for a year. Or Chris Casey used to send us 8-week-old puppies and say, just keep them. So, anyway, this is a funny story. This was probably about 87 or so. We'd gotten the kennel built, but we needed help. And Paul Edwards went to Japan to do a grooming demonstration. And this is a funny story. And afterward, this young Japanese gal, she raises her hand and she says, I want to come to America and work for a poodle handler. And of course, Paul was getting all proud and everything. And she said, oh, but not for you. I want to work for famous Dennis McCoy.
Yeah.
Paul's ego just went down like a balloon with no air. But anyway, she came to work for us.
Well, when I interviewed Paul, he told that story.
Did he really?
Yeah, and he said, I want to work for a famous American poodle handler. And Paul said he got all puffed up. Dennis McCoy, do you know him?
But anyway, after that, we always had Japanese people working for us, and Miyuki came in about 88 and worked for us for about a year and a half, went back to Japan and came back in about a year and a half or 2 years, and then she stayed with us till we retired. So Miyuki was with us for a long, long
That's
time.
Amazing. Yeah.
But we had Japanese doing the coats, and we had this American woman that kind of managed the kennel. And then we had local people that actually did the cleanup and took care of the dogs.
Yeah, it was a huge operation.
You couldn't do it now. You just couldn't get the help.
You could not find the help now. It's so hard to find. When I retired about 4 years ago, I guess now, and I was so lucky. But even then, it was hard to find help.
Well, 3 years ago, that's one of the reasons we sold the kennel. Kids just are not interested in animal husbandry. That's with the pet industry. And when you get to dog shows, I don't know that kids even work for handlers to learn anymore. I don't know how it even works. It just seems like
it's amazing. We often talk about how they don't know enough about animal husbandry because you see it, and they'll hopefully somebody's at the show like you or I, they come and ask. Because I don't know if you do, but I get questions all the time. They call me into their setup and then they ask me a question, and because they're worried about something. But these are things they should already know. So,
yeah, well, the Japanese girls. Actually, we went to Japan not long after that. We went with Kaz and Miwako, his first wife.
Yeah,
actually, we stayed at Miwako's parents' house for a week. They were really impressed that we loved Japanese food and ate most anything, because Tommy O had been there 2 weeks before, and he would walk a block down to a Friendly's. He wouldn't eat anything. But what was I saying? Oh, well, the Japanese were like that, kind of like our kids are now. And they explained, we went to a golden kennel, and I'll never forget it. The man said, we're not really accustomed to domesticated dogs. And it's not in our DNA like it is yours. Like the Japanese that would come to work for us, if I had a litter of puppies, they couldn't really identify that the puppies might be cold, but yet they're warm, or they just, it's a little different now. But that's kind of the way the young kids are now. They just don't have any much interest in animal. I'm sorry about barking dogs, but
That's the way it is.
Yeah, can't do anything about they're barking at the lawn man. So,
but it's interesting because I remember hiring at some point. I hired somebody that they weren't the most energetic worker, but they were so good at reading dogs that I wanted them there.
Yeah.
So, what was the next big dog after the? How many Quaker Oats did you guys get? Did you guys win?
I don't know. I truly don't know.
Yeah.
Jackie's kind of an interesting story, if you want to hear it.
Yes.
Jackie's owner at the time was very wealthy. He started a company called, if I remember correctly, Digital Systems, and it was sold to, I don't know what, some big company. But unbeknownst to us, he lived in Pensacola, Florida, and he decided he'd make a killing in real estate and lost his money. Wow. So he owed us a pretty big bill, which we learned a very hard lesson not to ever let that happen again. But he left. He did sign Jacqueline over to us, and she remained with us. But just to shorten the story, the 5 generations later, down from Jacqueline was the black bitch that Tim showed for us that the Sosnoffs own, Yessie. So it was tragic at the time, but it's a good thing that we got Jackie, or we wouldn't have had Yessie and she became the top winning black poodle all varieties.
I remember her. Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
Tell me how Peter came around.
Well, we were showing Peter's father, Christopher.
Well, I remember Christopher.
Actually, primetime Christopher, he went to Juan and Carlos in Spain for a year or so and came back for us to show. And Bob Forsythe gave him Best of Winners at Poodle Club America. He wasn't really my type of dog, but a lot of people really liked him. But he had a screw loose. He was really hard to show.
Really?
And I think it was a command performance thing, But anyway, we were showing Christopher, and Linda Blackie had this dog that she called Peter. She was at PCA one year at Ludwig's Corner. She had a camper, and she had this puppy, he was like 4 months old. His name was Peter, and she was trying her best to sell him for $300, and nobody wanted him. So anyway, she took Peter home, and eventually she thought, well, he's probably good enough to show. So she started showing him herself, and she got some singles on him. And then she couldn't really get him around the ring, so she just asked whoever was there to show him. I think Paul showed him, Bud showed him, and then there was a specialty, and Paul had a toy he was doing a lot of winning with. It was a dog that Ed Jenner owned, and Dorothy Dalton was doing the specialty, and David Sombach, who's now a photographer, worked for Paul.
I've known David since we were kids. Yeah.
Yeah, he took Peter back in and won the specialty. So anyway, we thought, well, maybe this is a pretty dog. So anyhow, we went ahead and entered him, and we showed him at York a couple weekends. We took him right from Linda there, but he was just so skinny. I remember Maxine was doing the variety, and she gave him the variety. She said, boys, this is a pretty dog, but you better get some weight on him and stop starving him. As years went by, Maxine loved the dog, and after that, she never put him down. But anyway, so we took him home, and that week we got some weight on him, but we showed him in Greenville, South Carolina, which back then, well, they probably still are. They're big shows. And he was best in show 3 days in a row.
Wow.
And then we went to Charleston, South Carolina the next weekend. He was best in show on Saturday. And we called Linda, and she said, guys, I can't even afford the pictures, much less your handling fee and the bonuses. And we really didn't have anybody. Did you really want to hear all this?
Yes.
You sure? We really didn't have anybody we just didn't have access to money people at that point in our lives. And did you know Madison Weeks and Hubert Thomas? They lived in Jacksonville, Florida. They had poodles from Becky Mason, and then they had some really big winning Smooth Fox Terriers, like best in show dogs. That Anyway, they had this client that had bought some dogs from them. They were horse people. He was a doctor that lived in Kentucky. And he went on Peter as a favor. And they changed the laws in Kentucky, and he couldn't write the dog off after just a few months, so he wasn't interested. And the Heart Socks that own No Nonsense, who were wonderful clients and became friends. We just didn't think they had an interest in standard poodles. They lived in Potomac, Maryland. And anyway, they went on the dog because they just didn't want to see him retired. So that's who owned Peter for the duration.
I still remember one of his first ads was "Hold on to your hats for what promises to be a ride of a lifetime." Remember that ad?
Well, he was. So that little puppy that Linda couldn't sell for $300 at Ludwig's Corner went on to win, I think, 5 Best in Shows and Best in Show at Westminster.
Well, tell me about his Westminster win. Was that your first group at Westminster, or was that just the first Best in Show?
He had won the group with that toy poodle, No Nonsense, under Cynthia. She might have been, no, she was married to Glenn at that point, Cynthia Summers. And it was a really nice group. Yeah, the year before, Sari had put her third in a really nice group as well. So, the group, Dennis and I, we went to dog shows hoping to win the variety. We didn't go to dog shows thinking we were winning Best in Show. That just wasn't how we showed dogs or how we thought. You got to win the variety first. So the variety that year, and we were really worried about it because Wendell had this black bitch out that Danny Jenner, I think he co-owned her with the Truesdells. Do you remember her? Gloria Cochran was judging.
What was the bitch's name?
I don't remember. I don't even remember her breeding. But I think Ed Jenner's son Danny co-owned that because he was with Wendell at the time, I think.
Oh, and this was what year? This was about 80.
This would have been 1991.
91.
Yeah.
So what was the black bitch that Dee won the group, or that Wendell won the group of the garden with?
No, that was Airy. No,
Airy.
that was Titania's. Titania's. Yeah. This bitch wasn't nearly as good as Airy. She really wasn't.
Yeah.
But we had heard rumors that Gloria was putting up Wendell's bitch. So we were thrilled to win the variety. I mean, we truly were. And then Sandy Schwartz was doing the group. And we knew he liked Peter, but it was a very competitive group. So we won the group. And then there was this lady. Did you ever hear of Jane Luce? She was a very wealthy lady. She had Bassets.
No.
She had tons of money, but she lived out of her station wagon. I mean, and she talked with a whistle because she was missing teeth. Maribeth O'Neill, she knew her. Not many people knew Jane. But anyway, she decided she wanted a standard poodle, and we got her actually, it was a Peter Jacqueline daughter, and we finished it. But anyway, Jane was, curiously enough, a very good friend of Dorothy Welsh's. And we knew that Dorothy liked Peter, but we didn't dare hope to go Best in Show. And they started talking that Bill was going Best in Show with wasn't that dog's name Hotspur?
Hotspur, Carrageen's Hotspur, yeah.
Yeah. The Bill was going Best in Show. Oh, so we thought, okay, we adore Bill, and that's a pretty dog. But we still thought, well, maybe we can do this. And so, lo and behold, he went Best in Show. And Dennis did want to retire him till he got 100 best. I think he had like 92. And back then, you didn't do a whole lot, as far as afterward. I think Dennis went to Sardi's. But I took the dog back then. Her name was Pam Campbell. She's remarried. She was Eddie Zook's wife for a while.
I know Pam, yes. Yep.
Anyway, Pam, I got in her van, and she drove Peter and I to the Heart Socks in Potomac so I could give him a bath. They didn't invite the dog back then. So anyway, I gave Peter a bath, and we showed him at a handful of shows, and he won his best. It was curious enough. There's a show, Alamance Kennel Club here in Raleigh, called the Carousel Show, and Dorothy Welsh was judging, and he went best in show and retired at that show.
Oh, that's nice.
Just to share, nowadays you see, like I say, you can cut any of this out, Will.
No.
I love dog history. I don't know if people really care anymore, but I'm
trying to make them care. That's why we're doing this.
I hadn't been judging very long, but I judged Lou Oslander's show. And he was so nice to me. I mean, I was really flattered. I consider myself a dog groomer. I never really considered myself, Dennis was the star of the family. But he was so nice to me. It was right after I did the group at Westminster. He said, Randy, when I was judging Best in Show, I went to a local bar. I had a drink. I put on my overcoat and walked over to Westminster and judged Best in Show. That's how things have changed. Now it's a big deal. They pick them up in a limo. It's on TV and everything.
I love that. That's great.
Quaker Oats and all stuff. It just wasn't. It's just a much bigger deal than it was back when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Wow. I remember being at the Best in Show, the garden the year Peter won. That was an exciting garden. So, and I was just introduced to the world of poodles at that point because Allison and I had just gotten together, and so I was a sporting guy and she was the poodle person. So
yeah. Well, you probably remember a dog we bred to. It was when Linda Campbell first started, and Susan Hillman showed Terima the Moor.
Oh, Mark, he was one of my favorites.
We loved Mark, and actually, Allison specialed the bitch out of that breeding up there.
Was it?
She was very pretty. It was a white bitch.
Oh, Trixie, Bag of Tricks. Was that no?
No. This was
that was Trixie. Was Banner's sister.
This was a bitch we bred and gave to Linda. We got one.
Oh, what was her name?
We got a litter out of her and gave her to Linda. It was Linda's house pet. She bred her and she never caught again, which we were devastated because she was a really pretty
what was that
bitch.
Bitch's name? I remember her. I think I won a Best in Show on her.
It was Randy something or other. She won the Canadian National and she was Linda's house pet. Yeah. But she was. We loved that Terima the Moor bitch. We bred a Gordon daughter to him.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites. I remember when I was young, working for Gary McDonald, he was being shown by Bob and Elaine at that point.
Really?
Yeah, and Gary took me over and he said, "That's the best dog of this dog show." And
he was very snapper. He was very snapper. He was totally snapper. But yeah, we were thrilled with what we got out of him. But anyway, I don't know how I segued into that, but
I love it. We were talking about Best in Shows in the garden, and I don't know how, but we swung around to that.
But anyway, Peter went back to Linda, but I will share with you that he's in a lot of pedigrees, but he was never a dominant dog. We finished probably 50 dogs a year. For 18 years, special a lot of dogs. I think only 2 dominant stud dogs came through our kennel. I think a dominant stud dog is a very rare thing. And that Gordon was a dominant dog and Treson was a dominant dog.
I think we had a Gordon son. I think Linda had a Gordon son.
She bred Bag of Tricks, okay. I think, if I remember correctly, to Gordon. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. I think a dominant stud dog is a true fluke, and it doesn't matter on the pedigree. Some of our most dominant poodles have been total outcrosses with pedigrees like the Square Dancer dog, just nothing pedigrees, or even Camille's Brody dog, not line bred, not. I think a dominant stud dog is just a fluke. You can't compare a dominant stud dog to a dominant family. A family has to be line bred.
Right.
But a dominant stud dog, at least in poodles, they've just happened.
That's interesting.
Just my theory. If you look at pedigrees.
I get it. So you're showing dogs. What was the last dog you guys campaigned before you retired?
Treson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Peter. Right after Peter, for a while, we specialed his brother, Repeat Breeding. Actually, that's. I'll tell you another story if you care to hear it. Annie was doing poodles at PCA, and we knew she liked Peter a lot. And Dennis showed Patrick one of his first shows, and he was Winter's dog, and he was very taken with him. That was Peter's repeat breeding.
Yeah, I remember Patrick. Now that you say his name.
And a month before that, up on the cherry blossom, Dennis he fell in the ring and wrapped Peter around a tent post. And at PCA, every time he approached the tent, he kind of went down, and it got worse and worse. And Annie was not able to put up Peter, and she told me later she would have put up Patrick, but Patrick hated me because I made him do stuff. And Miyuki was showing Patrick, and she never really got him under control. So Annie couldn't do that. So that's when she came up with the pairs, and the shit hit the fan with that. And, because when she was putting up Peter, she was putting up Buddy opposite with Margarita. Well, when she suddenly decided she couldn't do Peter, Margarita was out the door because she wanted him to match. Right. And we knew she liked Glenna's bitch. Nobody else knew that, but we did. So she put Glenna's bitch. Did she put Banner Waver best of opposite?
I think so. I think you're right.
She wanted him to match, and she said that over the loudspeaker, and that's when Joey went bananas. I mean, they had to scrape him off the tent, Annie should have never said the pairs part. It just did not go over. It went over about as well as Frank Sabella saying that the stanzas were fucking fabulous. And you can cut any of this out.
No.
Anyway, that's how that PCA truly happened, if you want the truth.
Oh, that's great.
That's the backstory.
I love it. But
she was determined that they were going to match.
I remember that. I wasn't there that year, but I remember those stories coming back.
Oh, Annie could think fast. You could say a lot about her, but boy, she could think on her feet. Yeah. So
that's incredible. So Trace Hull was the last dog. What year did you guys retire?
2000.
2000?
Yeah.
And you decided you wanted to judge?
Yeah. If you care to hear it, that Gordon dog had a very interesting story.
Oh, yes, I'd love to. Because I was a fan of Gordon, too. Because Juan used to come and stay. He's at the house. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, Peter was bred to this bit. No. Peter's father, when they had Christopher, he was bred to one of their bitches. And then they had that bitch at Crufts when the first time we went to Crufts in like 1988. She was a real pretty bitch. She won her class, and they asked me to groom her. Well, they handed me these scissors that were like safety scissors. I mean, I did the best I could. And actually, Claire Coxell was judging. She should have won the breed from the classes, but Claire Coxell put up a Tio Pepe bitch of her own breeding that she co-bred. But anyway, they took that bitch and bred her to a very common dog, because she was kind of a dizzy blonde. I mean, this bitch wasn't wrapped too tight either. So they bred her to a kind of common black dog of, who was that Drake lady? Elizabeth Drake, Harbovie. And, but that bitch at that point was farmed out in England to a Mrs. Hand, and she was bred to the Harbovie dog. And the guys from Spain got pick of the litter, and they chose Gordon. They named him after her gardener or something, Gordon. And they took Gordon back to Spain. Well, he was 6 months old. They brought him to PCA, and Ann Warner was judging. And, back then the classes were huge. And Juan was showing Gordon, and he had him facing the wrong way. Anyway, they left. And Anna remembered that. I'll get it with that later. But we took Gordon home, and he was this very cloddy dog puppy. He stood on bad feet. He just kind of went around the ring. And we were in Florida, and he was going to be a year old the next day. And he needed a major to finish. And I said, Dennis, if you don't finish this dog, he's going back to Spain unfinished. I refuse to grow this dog into coat. So anyway, thank God the judge gave him best of winners, and he finished, and we sent him to Spain. Well, they send him onward to Tina Palissori in Scandinavia. And she started showing them, and people would come back and tell us about this beautiful white male standard poodle, and would say, "Who is it?" And they'd say, "Well, his name is Gordon." And then I would look at each other and say, "Gordon? Really?" So time went on. We kept hearing about this dog, and we were showing Patrick, Peter's brother, at Westminster. This was probably about 1993, and Dennis came out of the ring, and we were standing there with Anna Warner, and she showed us this picture, and she said, "Boys, I did not judge this dog, but I saw it in Scandinavia, and you have got to get him." And we said, "What's his name?" She said, "Gordon." And we thought, holy shit, Gordon. But anyway, okay, that Peter's brother was abruptly retired, and Juan and Carlos called us to show Gordon at PCA that spring. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I'm not showing that flat-footed dog. He's probably one of those Scandinavian trims. I am not doing it. Well, typical Dennis McCoy, he entered the dog and didn't tell me. So the entries closed, and we got back from Virginia Beach. It was like 11 o'clock at night. All the floodlights were on. The help was unloading the dog. And the towels were picking up Gordon at the airport. And I guess he comes straight out of the show ring. He was number one dog that year, and they put bands in him and just put him in the crate, hairspray and all. And I hear Dennis yelling outside, "You've got to look at this dog." And I come out, and he has Gordon running him up and down the driveway in the floodlights, and the dog was absolutely breathtaking. And he stood on beautiful feet, by the way. How that happened, I don't know. But it was a true story of an ugly duckling. Anyway, we took him on to PCA, and he was a big enough hair, so I got him in an okay trim. And Ed Jenner was judging, and I remember Ed was marking off the dogs as they came in the ring, and he saw that dog, and he just looked up with big eyes. And you could hear the crowd when Gordon came out from under the tent. I mean, he really took the show. He really did. And he went on. He was only shown about a year and a half, but he had a huge impact on standard poodles the world over. He truly did. Yeah. He was, and he retired with us because he was still being bred. He became Dennis's mother's house pet, and his ashes are buried with her. So that was Gordon's story.
That's a great story. Yeah, because when one was at the house, when we were working at Linda's, it was always my Gordon, my Gordon, my Gordon.
Yeah, yeah, he's in the picture actually when he won the variety under Fresnel.
Okay. That's a good story. So when did you guys, in 2000, you retired, and then you decided to judge. How did that start? Who decided first, or was it just mutual?
That was the agreement. It's kind of a funny story if you want to hear another story.
Yes, that's what we're here for.
We showed Doris Lilienthal would have us ringside Treson in Florida. I think I got a major on him when he was like 6 months old. He was a beautiful puppy. That's one dog that never changed. Actually, Peter didn't change much, but Treson never changed. It's funny how some dogs don't. I can tell you the same story about the Dalmatian bitch we showed, but anyway,
Penny, right? Penny?
Yeah, Penny. Anyway, Treson, we finished him as a puppy, and we won a couple of specialties down there, and I just wouldn't hear of showing him. I just didn't want to special the dog. I just didn't. And Isabel Robeson, who owned Penny, Charlotte Patterson talked Isabel into backing Treson. But Isabel, most people don't realize that she wouldn't back a dog just to back it. She'd been on the board of Poodle Club America in I guess in the 70s, and Richard had shown some toy poodles for her. So She truly loved the breed. And she told Charlotte, well, okay, I'll go on. And Isabel's long gone, but her father started Mobil Oil. I mean, there was no... money was not an issue, but Isabel was a very thrifty lady. So I said, okay, the agreement was I'll do the dog, number one, if we retire when he's done and start judging. And number two, if I can double everything, if I can double the fees that we charge Isabel. Well, Charlotte had to convince Isabel of that. So Isabel finally said, okay. Well, he took off like a house of fire. It's just one Best in Show after another. And Isabel, with all her money, the first bill, and I doubled everything. I doubled the coat care, I doubled the bonuses, I doubled everything because I knew this was our retirement. And on the first bill, Isabel put a sticky note and she said, I really don't think I can afford this. She was joking because she wasn't going to give up the winning. Isabel loved to win. So on the bill I sent back to her, I said, well, that's too bad. I could use a vacation house. Because she had the house in Philadelphia and then the house in Florida. On the next note, she put, well, I guess I'll have to do it. Which one? Next note, I put the house in Florida. The next note, she put on it, where shall I leave the keys? I mean, this went on for a long time with a lady who had 36 horses with a trainer. I mean, this was just peanuts to her. But Isabel was a thrifty lady. But she was, I was so proud to work for Miss Robeson. She was like, she and Ed Jenner, there's maybe just one or two people now, but she and Ed Jenner were of the ilk that had breeding programs. They didn't just back dogs. Right. Isabel had God knows how many Dalmatians with Bobby Fowler. Isabel would go sit in the runs at Bobby's with the Dows, or she would bring a couple home for a week and take them back so they had a home life. I mean, she didn't just bag dogs. She was a dog lady. She had the pug breeding program with Charlotte. She had the pointers. Like I said, you can cut any of this out. I'm just trying to say what a grand lady Isabel was. I remember Peter had that pointer dog. He did become the top winning pointer in breed history. I think he was out of Bee's Knees, which Isabel Cohen that Tom bred. Yep. But Peter was after her to back that dog. She didn't like him, and she would not back him. Even though she bred him, she would not back him. But that's the way she was. If she was going to do it, she put her whole heart into it. But she was a pleasure to work for. It was a real honor of our life to work for Miss Robeson.
That's fabulous. Yeah. So you're judging now.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, 2000. Or did it go from there? Did you
well, it was a bumpy
right away,
road.
or?
It was a bumpy road. Dennis didn't take to it, and he was very, very. He will say in retrospect, it was time that we retired because the Japanese weren't interested in coming here anymore. We couldn't get the help. And, we each got a group when we retired, as did Bonnie Threlfall. We were the last three when they were still giving handlers groups. If you were an accomplished handler and did the interviews, okay, you would get a group. So, but it really bothered him, and it took him a long time to get used to it. And he never really, I was hoping he would take to judging like he did to handling, but he never did. He was kind of like Bob Forsythe. He was good at it, but he'd just as soon be at home. I think he enjoyed politics, and that's why he enjoyed handling, talking a judge into liking his dog or figuring out how to win under a judge. And you can't do that as a judge. And I think he missed the grooming area. And he went into club work. He got really involved with PCA, later became president, I think, for 3 terms. He became show chair for Raleigh Kennel Club, then cluster chair of 5 shows in the spring, 5 shows in the fall. And he was much more into club work, which shocked me, than judging. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But that was politics. He could find, if something was wrong at the show, he'd try to figure out how to make it right. And he loved putting on a show that really ran well. And he and Mary Ellen Fischler, they were the last of the old guard at PCA that thought like the old guard. And that's the way they kept it.
Well, Mary Ellen, yes. So, but you enjoy, did you take to it right away?
Yeah, I don't enjoy it as much as I did. But yes, I enjoyed it. But I'm very old-fashioned. I mean, Frank Sabella would tell me how wrong I was. He says it's a dog show now, but I still look at it as selecting breeding stock, and I still look at it that way, which I don't think most people do.
Well,
But I
you
don't.
do.
I still enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it nearly as much as I used to. The quality is so bad, and having to travel. I don't mean to whine, but that is the way it is.
Yeah. Well, that's usually the normal complaint we get from people, especially ones that have dedicated their whole life to shows, that the travel sort of wears them out. So.
Oh yeah. When I first started, I was complaining about it, and Miss Dottie Mack said, "Randy, it's part of judging. Just shut up and do it." And that worked for several years until I just think the quality is just so bad. But if you find that one dog that you really, really like, it makes the whole trip worthwhile.
Yeah.
Really
I just
does.
started now, but that's how I am. I really enjoy when you do find that dog that makes you think, oh, I'd like to show that dog.
Yeah. Well, I never think I'd like to show it, but
I do. That's how I look at it, and especially if it's green or in the rough still, I'd like to take that dog home and see what I can do with it. So.
Yeah. Well, I have this theory. Most of the people in this sport now are fanciers that breed dogs. They're not really dog breeders. We don't have Becky Mason or Sylvia Hammerstrom. She's still at it. She showed to me recently, but she's a dinosaur. I mean, we just don't have big kennels like that, big breeders, or even our small breeders now. I don't think they have they don't really know the pedigrees and have an aim in mind and know what they're doing. And it's just not like it used to be. We do have some. Do have some, but they're few and far between.
Are you still breeding?
No. We bred. We had a few litters of Chihuahuas with some good success, but when Dennis died, they're my little family, and I'm afraid something might happen to them. And I'm a real pet owner, so no.
So you have no poodles at all then? Chihuahua?
No, yes, he was their last poodle.
Okay.
We had, I was judging, this has happened to me twice. It happened fairly recently. But years ago, I was judging in one of those big Texas shows, Houston, I think it was. And I hadn't been judging long. And I judged breeds that day, and it was a big show, and I didn't see any of the groups. The day before, I had awarded Timmy Best in Show with Coleman, and Dorothy Nichols had given Timmy a very strong toy group with Coleman, and Dorothy Nichols had given Coleman Best in Show. So I got there during the last group and sat down with the other judges, and I loved Coleman, and I thought that's what I was going to do. And I walked in there, and this, I'd never even cared for the breed before. And this black man comes in with this Rottweiler, and I thought, oh my God, that's what they're supposed to look like. So I took a deep breath when I examined everybody and awarded the Rottie Best in Show. And later on, I became good friends with the guy. His name was Keith, and he said he was afraid to step out there and get the ribbon because he knew I was a poodle person, But anyway, Shaka, that was one of his first Best in Shows. He went on to be the top winning Rottie in breed history. He won the group at Westminster under Pat Lawrence. And right after he did that, I gave him another Best in Show. I think it was his last. I don't know why I said it, but I said, Keith, if you ever have a bitch puppy that looks like Shaka, I'd like to have it. And I just went on about my business. Well, about a year later, I got a bitch puppy that looked just like Shaka. And we finished her. Well, no, we didn't finish her. We got her half finished and had her x-rayed, and she was dysplastic. So we had her spayed. But anyway, she and Yessie were our house pets. They loved each other.
I didn't know that either. That's a great story.
So she lived to be 13 or 14. I can't remember, which is old for a Rottie, but her hips never bothered her. But she and Yessie loved each other.
Oh, nice. That's great.
You can cut that out too. I just thought I very recently had
all the stuff you say we can cut out. We're not cutting out anything.
It's a judging experience. Sometimes you got to go with your gut. Very recently, I gave a black lab. The same thing happened. This black lab came in for Best in Show, and I thought, oh my God, I think that's what they're supposed to look like. And I gave them Best in Show, and God, Desi immediately texted me, you know how he is about labs. Tom Bradley sent me this text. I didn't know if he was flattering me or not. His text was he was shocked I found it. But anyway, it was bred by the gentleman. It won the breed at Westminster. You know who I'm talking about.
Fabian or Christian?
Fabian. Well, Christian was showing the dog. I didn't know who
That's
it was
a lovely dog. That's a
either.
beautiful
But
dog.
I just went with my gut and thought, well, that's what they're supposed to look like.
Wow,
So
that's a beautiful
anyway,
dog.
that's two of my highlights judging were those two dogs.
That's great. So what's next?
I tell myself each morning, I say good morning to Dennis, and I tell myself, Randy, this is as good as it gets. So enjoy the day. So I just, my house is way too big. The property's too big, but it's perfect for my little dogs. I love my neighbors, so I spend a lot of time working out in the yard and judging at shows. And I'm cluster chair now for the shows here in Raleigh, the 5 in the spring, the 5 in the fall. And I actually really do enjoy keeping it together. And all the people, knock on wood, that are part of the cluster now, we work together really well. So not a day goes by that I don't do club work. So judging club work and working in the yard. That's my day.
Yeah, that's a good day. That's a good day. Well, thank you, Randy. I really appreciate your time. That was fun.
Well, it's my
stories
pleasure.
were great.
I hope that was okay.
No, they were great.
You're welcome to cut out any of it. It's not.
I know you keep telling me that. Well, thank you, Randy, and I'll see you down the road somewhere for sure.
Okay. Say hello to Linda for me.
I will. Thank you, Randy. And I'm not editing a thing. Those are great stories, and I want people to hear them. Again, if you like what you see here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget about the podcast, The Dog Show Drive, with myself and Wayne Cavanaugh. Talk to you soon.